Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes is coming closer.
Hello everybody, we're here for a very special video for 1983 movie. We are doing Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm going to introduce my guests first. We have Nathaniel Thompson from Mondo Digital. How's it going, Nathaniel?
Great, how are you?
And I'm good. And we also have Bruce Holecheck from Cinema Arcana. Both these guys have done numerous commentaries. I'm going to let Nathaniel introduce the next very special guest, which is very cool. Going to get tons of cool information about this film. I'm really excited about this.
I can't imagine anyone on the planet who's more about this movie than the guy who was actually there. This is my great friend Howard Green from Walt Disney. He's been there since the late 70s. I think he started around the time of The Rescuers. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started at Disney in 1976. I'm actually in my 50th year. November was my 49th anniversary with the company, and so now I'm officially in my 50th year. I'm an old guy. But
fitting for this movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any regrets, Howard?
yeah. But
have you thought about your own mortality, Howard?
It's been a great ride at Disney. I'm still there, working on animated films mostly these days. I'm VP of Communications for Walt Disney Animation Studios, and our movie Zootopia 2 just crossed the $1 billion mark today.
Wow!
So we're happy there these days. They're not all that way, but this one is, and it's a great film. But yeah, I don't know if you want me to talk more about my beginnings and how I got to Something Wicked, or you want to lead the conversation. Either way.
Since you mentioned Zootopia 2, I think that's kind of appropriate because the Zootopia movies are a lot darker and grittier than what the trailers sell them as. They're cute kids movies, so they're kind of descendants of when this movie came out. This was when Disney started to go dark, like around the Black Hole was a turning point, and from there on, there was this period where they got pretty rough, because things like Jaws and Close Encounters and Star Wars were, had sort of raised the bar, and so Disney was trying to meet it in different ways, because this was made around the same time as Tron, but you can still see that in stuff like, Zootopia, I think is a good example, because, those are really hardboiled crime films kind of disguised as really fun, kid animal movies. Why don't you just tell us?
That whole period of time is really interesting at Disney. When I started there in November of '76, that was the year that we had the Shaggy DA was our big holiday film. I was still in distribution. I started there, and then the following summer, I switched over to publicity, where I spent most of my years. And that summer, we had The Rescuers, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. In fact, my first day in publicity at Disney, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo was coming out, and Herbie was going to put his tire prints in cement at the Chinese theater. It was a good old-fashioned publicity stunt. And we grabbed one of the secretaries from the department. We put a sash on her that said Miss Monte Carlo. We told her, don't say anything, just. And there was a big ceremony at the Chinese theater where the tire prints were put in cement. And it was a one-day only thing. The next day they pried up the cement. It was truly a great publicity stunt. That was my introduction to publicity. But what happened at that time, there was a new publicity director named Tom Wilhite, who had come from the PR world, Rogers and Cowan. He helped persuade Groucho Marx to come out of retirement and come to his college in Iowa. But Tom was a really smart guy. And as the films were coming out, and at that point we were kind of just thinking of movies like Walt would have made, what would Walt have done? It wasn't that much original thinking at that point, playing it safe. Tom was thinking, he was sending critiques to Ron Miller, who was the chairman of the company. And, he was looking at the movies and the changing landscape, the Star Wars, had come around, was it 77?
77.
Yeah.
77, yeah.
Anyway, so Tom was sending in ideas, and finally Ron Miller said, if you're so smart, you should run production. And with Tom's influence was really great. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I'll tell you more about him in a little bit.
I think we should probably mention some of those early Disney movies like Black Hole and Watcher in the Woods. Really interesting stuff to Tron and Something Wicked This Way Comes. And it seems like a lot of them, I don't know, like Watcher in the Woods, and these weren't exactly successful movies, and they had multiple kind of versions. It's really kind of interesting. I'm very curious on how Disney was operated behind the scenes on what kind of cuts and versions and things of that nature.
Yeah, that was a little before Tom Wilhite had his influence, but Disney was desperately trying to get into the mainstream movie business. Our films were skewing quite young, and we sort of lost our way a little bit. And movies like Star Wars were really, changing everything. So Black Hole was a really, it was an interesting, was that our first PG film? I think it might have been, yeah. We were trying desperately to make movies that would appeal to a wider audience, and certainly Black Hole and Watcher in the Woods were two examples of that. There were good people involved. The scripts weren't quite what they could have been, but then Tron and movies like that started to make a difference. They weren't entirely successful, but at the box office. But
I was going to say we should probably talk a little bit about the history of Something Wicked This Way Comes itself, even pre-Disney. So it was originally a short story written by Ray Bradbury in the 40s, I believe.
48.
And towards the end of the late 50s, he kind of came up with this idea that he was going to flesh this out into a feature screenplay, and he specifically wanted that for Gene Kelly.
Yeah.
So he had put that together, presented it to Gene Kelly. They had tried to get it off the ground in like the late 50s through the 60s, and it just never quite panned out for various reasons. So then he went ahead and adapted his screenplay into a full-length novel, and that was published in 62, I believe. And then from there, it kind of ran a gamut of several different production companies that were trying to pull this thing together. I don't know if you guys want to talk about some of the directors and people that were attached to it before this. I know Wikipedia, in sort of just a one-off sentence, mentions that there was even a point in time where Sam Peckinpah was attached to direct this, which I can't even imagine a universe where Sam Peckinpah would be the appropriate director for this movie.
That's in the Fangoria interview that he mentions Peckinpah in that interview, and it seems that they talked a lot about it. I can't either.
Right.
But Robards is a guy who worked with Peckinpah 3 times, so that checks out. So,
yeah. I'll tell you a little bit how I first came to know about the project. So Tom Wilhite moved over from head of publicity to head of production and creative head of production. And I remember going into his office one day, and he held up a paperback copy of Something Wicked This Way Comes, and he asked me if I had ever read it, and I had not. And he gave me a copy to read. And that was my first introduction to the fact that he and Disney were interested in doing it. Tom came from the Midwest. He's an Iowa boy, and I think he connected to that small town setting and all that. And of course, Peter Douglas, Kirk Douglas' son, was shopping the property around at that point. But
yeah, I think there was a time where Kirk Douglas was even attached to play the main role in it, the Jason Robards. The role eventually went to Jason Robards, but then I guess by the time it hit production, that was no longer a thing.
Now, it's really interesting is the selection of Jack Clayton as the director. Jack had done the Innocents and the Pumpkin Eater and a sequel to Room at the Top. What's his other big credit?
Yeah, well, yeah, they did Over the Top, and then they did a sequel like much later on. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think Our Mother's House is another one that I think
that's right.
casts a shadow on this one, especially.
And Great Gatsby was his 70s movie.
Right,
Yeah.
that was 74, and I guess the project landed at Paramount for a time, and Barry Diller took over Paramount, and when he came in, he was wiping the slate clean pretty much, and he decided he called Jack Clayton up to his office and said that they weren't going to make the movie. And I believe, as the urban legend goes, Jack Clayton threw a chair out of the window of Barry Diller's office, and that was the end of the project over there. But Jack Clayton was well known for psychological thrillers. If you know The Innocents, you know that it's kind of a slow, moody, very psychological kind of thing. And the films of the day, Poltergeist had just come out, and I know that the studio was looking for some of that kind of more visual effects oriented type of thing, and Jack was at odds with that, so there were tensions along the way, certainly.
Yeah, Jack Clayton. He really wasn't exactly a prolific director. I mean, he really, at the end of the day, he only had like a dozen credits or something. Or directing credits, I should say. Yeah. But yeah, he was kind of known as being a perfectionist. And I guess his tie to Ray Bradbury, I guess Jack Clayton was, I guess, like sort of an uncredited one of the associate producers, or he had worked with John Huston on Moby Dick. And apparently Ray Bradbury had some work with that. So that's sort of how they knew each other. So I guess that was his connection to Ray Bradbury, and that's why I guess Ray Bradbury was pushing for Jack Clayton to be working on this project.
Jack Clayton was not a bad choice to direct it if you wanted a psychological thriller, but as it turned out, the studio was looking for something a bit different, and as production moved along, they felt that it was slow and ponderous and too much of that relationship. I think that's sort of what makes it appealing and interesting. They did end up reshooting. They took it out of his hands towards the end there, and they put in the tarantula scene. I was on the set the day of that tarantula shoot, and tarantulas give off these little hairs, and they had tarantula wranglers were there on the set, and the air was thick with these tarantula hairs, as I recall. They also had some stunt tarantulas. I actually have one of the great mechanical effects guys on the film was a guy named Isidoro Raponi, who had worked with Carlo Rambaldi on King Kong and E.T., and he could build anything. He had a very thick Italian accent, even though he'd been in the country for years, and he was just one of the most charming, delightful people. I worked with him also on Baby's Secret of the Lost Legend, where Izzy had built these dinosaurs, these mechanical dinosaurs that worked really well on in Burbank on the stage, but when you put them out in the middle of the rainforest, they did not work very well at all.
The Jaws story all over again. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. But Izzy had these mechanical tarantulas that were the stunts that they were on wires and there were knobs and things like that. And he actually built one that I still have to this day. It's got a knob and it's in a little box, and you turn it and the tarantula starts moving around.
That's funny.
I think Lucio Fulci could have used some of those on the Beyond.
Yeah, right. I actually saw Baby Secret of the Lost Legend in theaters when I was a kid, because as a kid obsessed with monsters, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're making a movie about Makili Mbembe, the dinosaur in the Congo, right. And like all this stuff. Yes, I was so excited to go see that. It's the 80s were definitely a different time, especially as far as practical effects go, and it's just to me there was so much. It felt like there was so much more heart in movies than there is nowadays.
Yeah. I spent 3 months on the Ivory Coast on Baby. I turned 30 over there. and it was pretty. We did shoot in the rainforest, and there were natives and naked women and mud huts. It was a crazy shoot, and we were there with William Catt and Sean Young and Patrick McGowan. I got to be friends with Patrick McGowan, who felt that he was making the next ET when he started, and as it went along, and it was clear that it was no ET, he got a little more disappointed, and I was one of the few people I think he talked to during that shoot. But
it's fun.
Turn into Longshanks.
Yeah. But anyway, that's another story.
Should we talk about the actual story of Something Wicked This Way Comes? I don't think we've mentioned the actual plot.
Yeah, I mean it's a fascinating story, and Jason Robards is really well cast to be the father of young Will. And let's talk about the cast a little bit. Royal Dano is the lightning rod salesman. Great guy Diane Ladd, who just passed away, has a small role as Jim Nightshade's mom. The day she passed, I posted a picture of me on the set with her sitting on the Nightshade house porch. But you guys can talk about the story if you like.
Well, so it's set in a town called Derry, Ohio, where there are these kids being lured to... Oh, no, sorry.
I was going to mention that. Like, this is basically Stephen King's entire... He saw read this book and was like... I was watching this. It's fitting that it came out in '83, the year of Stephen King movies. So it's perfect that it was.
It is very Stephen King. Yeah. I mean, the gist is that it's about these two best friends, Will Halloway and Jim Nightshade. Will's father had him at a much older age than usual, and so he has a lot of regret that he's not in his physical prime. And then, of course, a traveling carnival arrives in the dead of night, run by Mr. Dark, played by Jonathan Pryce, who is fascinating casting. I remember people were sort of confused by the film when it came out because he wasn't really a known. This is before Brazil. And people were like, "Who's Jonathan Pryce? What is this? Who is this guy?" And I think he's. We'll get to him later, but I think he's great.
He's one of them.
Yeah, and so he brings along like the Dust Witch, played by Pam Grier, who's supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world, and can't argue with that. And they start luring in the town people, granting their wishes, but at a high cost. And so one by one, the townspeople get sort of pulled into this dark carnival that feeds on their desires and their hopes and disappointments and their fears. And so basically, Jason Robards and the two kids have to figure out a way to sort of pull themselves away and save the town.
Yeah, one of the funniest things to me is that, the movie constantly makes references to Jason Robards being old. And he's the old man. He can't do anything. He's old. But as Jonathan Pryce is tearing pages out of the book, when he's listing the ages, these years that he's ripping out from Jason Robards' life, he says, 38, the perfect time to sire a child or whatever, indicating that if he has a 12-year-old child, that Jason Robards' character is only supposed to be 50 years old. And that was considered old at the time. And here
he's
I
52.
am. I'm like,
52. 52.
I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, which is literally younger than Nathaniel. But
it's also, it's more so about his heart. Because when he says 40, now you're old. Because that's when he must have developed a heart condition because he has a bad heart. Yeah. But I honestly, the one thing that they did really well, because the book has a lot of stuff with they go into depth about the whole not rescuing his son. Mm-hmm. And they kind of put all that exposition in the library. And usually when you hear exposition dump, you're like, but this is literally the heart and soul of the movie, I think, when Jonathan Pryce starts ripping those pages out and he says, 32, still time to learn how to swim. And you're like, oh, that's a brilliant, beautiful line, especially if you read the book. And he says, it's gone. And he throws the first page. I think that's probably some of the best acting. Those two together like that is just, I think that's the heart and soul of the movie. I love that scene. I watched that scene 100 times.
Well, it's funny. It's funnier because there's an earlier bit in the movie where he starts, Jason Robards sits down on the stairs with his son Will, and he's like, "Oh, can't sleep." He's like, "Nah." He's like, "Oh, I think we should talk sometime about that summer down at the lake." He's like, "You're really scared back then." He's like, "Oh, it's all right. I need to go to bed, Dad." I thought they were sort of alluding to the fact that maybe Jason Robards had a heart attack in front of his kid, and that scared the child. And that's why the child seems so concerned with his dad's mortality and his dad being old. And I thought that was going to be, sort of the dynamic between the son and the father there. But then, like, as it goes on, then, like, when they do finally discuss it, when they're sitting out on the swing, you're like, oh no, he almost let his kid drown because he didn't know how to swim. And then you find out that the other kids, the neighbor's missing father, was the one that actually saved him. So yeah, it's kind of, it was almost like a little bit of misdirection. I was kind of expecting the movie to go one way, and then it kind of revealed this whole different backstory than the one I kind of created in my head.
Yeah, no, the story is deep, and as it says on the first line of my press kit here, what price would you pay to have your deepest desires come true? And it's so well set up where you meet the one-legged athlete and the Richard Davalos, who plays is he the barber? I think.
Called Brady?
No, the barber's somebody else. Anyway, it's so interesting the way they set all that up. And then the circus comes to town. By the way, that whole set for Greentown is on the Disney back lot, and it used to be the residential street, and they spent a fortune building that set.
Right.
Richard McDonald was the production designer. His wife, Ruth Myers, I think it is, was the costume designer. She's still around. Richard's gone. But Ray wrote a version of the script, and Jonathan, who's Mortimer? What's Mortimer's for? John Mortimer did a revised version of the script. I think the studio and the director just had different visions for the film, and it led to conflict. And of course, times were changing at the box office as well.
Well, and Disney used a lot of their heavy hitters, like they brought in the best matte painters. I mean, they used even some of the special effects personnel overlaps from Tron a little bit as well. But I mean, it's a really beautifully mounted film. I mean, it feels like an autumn movie appropriately for the autumn people. But it really captures that feeling like as well as any movie I can think of. It's like really one of the best Halloween movies you can put on. It just really captures that feeling so beautifully.
Yeah, and that whole opening scene where the lightning rod salesman comes in, and it's all on a soundstage. I mean, they shot some establishing shots back in Vermont, I think. Yeah, but what they've created on the stage, I mean, it gives the film a unique look, and the two homes of the boys and Jason Robards, where the kids climbing up the side of the house there and coming back from the carnival. Jonathan Pryce, it was his first American film, and he was a really wonderful guy, humble and quiet. I'll tell you one fun story. I got to take Jason Robards and his family and Jonathan Pryce to the Magic Castle in Los Angeles. We went for a Sunday brunch, which is the only time you could bring kids. But that was one of my great moments, going to the Magic Castle with the Robards family and Jonathan Pryce. I got to know Jason quite well. And another sort of a side story was he was looking for a print of his Sam Peckinpah film, Cable Hogue, The Ballad of Cable Hogue. And he didn't know where to get one. So I had some friends who were 16 millimeter film collectors, and one of them checked the Big Reel, which was a place he went to find stuff. And anyway, we managed to find him a copy of The Ballad of Cable Hogue, a pristine 16 millimeter print. But that sort of bonded us together, that and the Magic Castle. And I stayed in touch with him even after the film. And here's the capper to the story. The head of Disney Animation is a guy named Jared Bush, who directed Zootopia and is in charge of all the films now. His kid goes to a school somewhere in Pasadena or whatever, and Jared calls me over one day. He goes, I got to tell you, Jason Robards' grandson knows your name. And he said, and I never met the grandson. I met the son, Jason's son, and this is the son of the son. And he goes, you're like a legend in our household. and the reason why is because Jason's son, it was at the Magic Castle with me that day. I had one of those Casio watches that had a game in it. It was kind of a primitive early electronic thing. It was like Pong or something, but you'd push a button. And the kid liked the watch so much that I gave it to him. I said, "Here, you can have it." So I think that that's why the grandson knows my name. But anyway.
they have a framed photo of you on their mantle.
They threw the 16 millimeter print of Cable Hogan in the garbage and kept the watch.
Right.
But I did go to the set quite a bit, and there are pictures of me with Ray Bradbury's and Jason and Jonathan, and just have very wonderful memories of being there. I was there when James Horner scored the film. The first, as you know, the original score was Georges de la Rue, and the studio felt that it wasn't exciting enough, didn't add to the flavor of the film they were looking for, and they didn't use it, and they brought in James Horner, who had only done a couple films at that point.
Yeah, so
I like both scores. I think both scores are really good, honestly. I listen to both, and I'm like, oh, whichever.
Yeah. I actually prefer the original score a little better. I think it's a little more ominous, has a little bit darker of a tone. Whereas the new one, my main issue with the Horner score is that I feel like the main theme to it, to me it rings a little close, at least in parts, to the Imperial March from Star Wars. Yeah. It kind of feels like a little reminiscent of that to me, and it's a little too much at times, which I guess, like Howard said, if Disney was going for something that would kind of add a little excitement to it, a score that will do a little more lifting for the film, then make it a little more exciting, then yeah, that's the right choice. But I think that the original score kind of does fit the material a little bit better. Yeah. But I mean, both of them are fine. I wouldn't have known it without listening to the original score. It's not like I listened to the current score or watched the movie as it stands, and I'm not just like, oh, this score is terrible. It's like, no, it works fine. But yeah, I think I might slightly prefer the original.
It's not like Return of the Living Dead Part 2. The Casio keyboard comes in and you're like, what's going on? That's the worst rescoring I've ever heard.
I got to tell you that Jack Clayton was a really intense and director, but he was very charming and delightful. And the disagreements he had with the studio led him to like ban people from the set. But he always liked me. I was I was always allowed on the set, and I actually visited him at his home. He was married to the actress Haya Hararit. Who is she in Exodus or something like that, and she was around as well. But Jack was very sincere in the movie that he wanted to do, and had a vision that just was at odds with even Ray. I mean, Jack and Ray didn't see eye to eye on it either.
Yeah, funny enough. So there was a few things that apparently he was like. There were a couple of movies that he had turned down that actually probably ended up more famous than anything he actually worked on. So apparently he turned down They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And he was originally offered Alien and turned that down as well. There was a point where he was attached to The Tenant, but by the time that got into production, I guess Paramount no longer, or whoever was handling the project, for some reason didn't think he was interested anymore, and they offered it to Polanski, which I think really pissed Clayton off. And then in the 80s, there was a point where he was actually going to do The Bourne Identity, starring Burt Reynolds, which would have been
I would have watched that one.
Right.
I haven't seen the new ones, but I would have watched the Burt Reynolds one.
Right.
Jack ended up making a few more movies. He did one called Memento Mori. I think he made a couple additional movies after Something Wicked. He had a great assistant named Jeannie Sims, who was always smoking a cigarette and quite a character. I worked with a lot of the genre magazines who covered the making of Something Wicked. Stephen Rebello did the great Cinefantastique article. Jean-Marc and Randy L'Officier did I think they did the Cinefex article, but it was my job to work with them and make sure they got all the interviews they wanted. And there's some great reporting on the making of the film. If you know Steve Rebello, he's written, his brand new book is on the making of Strangers on a Train. He did a book on the making of Psycho, most famously, and great book on the making of Valley of the Dolls. Have you read that one, Nate? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Very juicy, very good book. But he's terrific, and that Cinefantastique article is available online. I was just looking at it today.
Doesn't Strangers on a Train also end or have some traveling carnival scenes as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It ends with an out of control carousel. Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say bring it all together. Right.
Yeah.
Another unsung hero in the film is Bob Schiffer, who did the makeup as Jonathan Pryce as the carousel goes backwards and it goes forwards, right? And he ages. Yeah. But we used to go to Bob Schiffer's office, and he would have these different makeup heads of how the character would age. And Bob was a makeup man from the golden age of Hollywood. He worked on Rita Hayworth and Betty Davis, and Lady from Shanghai was a film that Bob Schiffer worked on. And, he was a bit of a rascal. He used to go sailing with Humphrey Bogart and Errol Flynn.
What a life!
Yeah, very handsome guy. But he did a great job on the makeup and the whole aging of Mr. Dark.
Well, he had done some other puppet work and some other makeup work for the film that ended up not in the final theatrical cut. The original Hall of Mirrors sequence when Jason Robards goes in there. For the theatrical cut as it stands now, Jason Robards kind of sees the other townspeople as they're living out their fantasies. But originally, that sequence involved him seeing almost like zombified version of the townspeople, all gaunt, and it's the idea that this carnival is feeding on them. And then there's also Jason Robards kind of imagining his own death as he's becoming like this withered character. So yeah, there's actually some pretty decent stuff in there that was created for this movie that didn't end up making the final cut.
Yeah. There was another guy who contributed to the script, John Culhane, who was a journalist, wrote for Reader's Digest and covered a lot of Disney things. He wrote about the Nine Old Men, the original animators for Disney, and he wrote about the new group of animators, the Nine Young Men. But he was called on to write the prologue, I believe, and do some punch up on the script. And he came from. He was from Illinois, from a small town, Rockford, Illinois, I think. Yeah. Anyway.
So jumping back a little bit to Ray Bradbury himself. Yeah. I know that you were you his handler on the film, or was that more just like his sort of like a liaison between him and the press? And what was he like? My friend Brian Sen said that he met him once, and basically all he wanted to talk about was the problems with the American education system. Literally nothing about anything about his books or anything.
Yeah, I wasn't his handler or anything, but if there were requests to do press, I would be the publicity liaison between him and the publicity department. I got to know Ray really well. And of course, he's like a big kid. Seeing this movie come to life was a dream come true for him. He waited a long time to see it. He was very happy with the film in the end. Despite the problems, despite the compromises, he felt like it was like stuffing the pages of his book into a camera. He used to talk about it being like haiku in a camera. I'm not sure what he meant by that exactly, but he was he was there a lot and very excited to see it come together. And I can remember going to the premiere with him and being at the studio on the Disney lot with him. And I maintained a friendship with him up until the very end. In fact, in the last couple of years of his life, I'd go over to visit him over in Cheviot Hills over by 20th Century Fox. And I would bring him 8x10 photos of himself on the set of Something Wicked or just images that he hadn't seen. And it really brightened him up, and he loved to see it. The last time I saw him was in December, the year before he died, and I was over at that part of the city to see the Scorsese film Hugo. It was playing at the Landmark over there, and we stopped in to see him. And he wasn't having a particularly good day. He was lying in bed and not really speaking. And I just wanted to pop in and say hello. And we were getting ready to leave because it was clear he wasn't having a good day. And as we got up to go, my wife and I, he said, "Will you read to me?" And it was just the most poignant thing and I was so honored to be asked by Ray Bradbury. And his bedroom was surrounded by his books. And I said, "Is there anything in particular you'd like me to read?" And it's intimidating reading something that Ray had written to the guy who's lying there. So I picked a book of short stories, and there was an essay in the beginning about how he writes these stories. And I recall reading that to him, and it was just really emotional to be reading something to the author of the book, and that was the last time I saw him.
Right.
Did he have any favorite work that was adapted? I know so many of his stories. Did he have any favorite adaptations that were made into films?
I can't remember if he liked The Illustrated Man or not. I think that's a flawed film too, isn't it, Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, and then obviously there's a lot of obviously there's the Bradbury Theater for TV, that he hosted, and
the Halloween Tree is pretty excellent too, I think.
Yeah, Halloween Tree is great.
Yeah. He really liked the movie that Roy E. Disney produced, the Man in the Ice Cream Suit.
Yeah.
He was really happy with that movie. I mean, he really loved that one. But I think
right?
Stuart Gordon.
Yeah, that's right. But I think ultimately he really liked Something Wicked, even with the problems.
But you wouldn't know that though when it came out, because when I was a kid and I saw it in the theater, and all the kids who saw it loved it. I mean, you had no idea. It was exactly what you wanted, and I think it's appropriate recording this right now because there was it was weird seeing there was so much press about this movie in October 2025 because it hit Disney Plus, which was the first time that it hit streaming, and all of a sudden you saw articles all over the place about this movie, like the Lost Disney supernatural classic. So it was weird. All of a sudden, it had this new fan base. All of a sudden, people discovering the movie again because the Blu-ray was only out for a quick blink of an eye with the Disney Movie Club, and the DVD had been out of print for forever. So it's really cool seeing it kind of come back into the conversation again.
So we should tell them, Nate, about that special screening that we had. It was in I think it was November 23.
Yeah.
So I have in my possession the director's cut of the film. It's a half-inch video. It was given to me. It sort of was done for screening purposes at the time. It's not there's still some space holders and streamers for the where the scenes cut together. But it's the director's cut. It's Clayton's cut with the Georges Delerue score, and I had some friends who really wanted to watch it, so we got a screening room over at Disney. Nate was there with his partner, husband Dave, and we invited some special people. Vidal Peterson, who plays Will, he came along, and Steve Burum, who was the cinematographer, he was there. He's 84 or something like that now, and we ran this cut. In fact, it was a pretty poor half-inch, couple generations down, but we improved it. I called on some friends with some skills, and we made it slightly better than it was, and improved the sound. It was good enough to run in a screening room, and it was really eye-opening to see Jack's original cut of the film, because it's quite a bit different. Nate, you can talk to the differences better than I can, but I hope someday it'll get seen.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope it gets restored someday so people can get a look at it. I mean, it's quite well. Obviously, the Delarue score gives it a very different flavor, throughout. But I mean, it was almost finished. I mean, except for one effect shot, it was pretty much done. But yeah, I mean, the whole tarantula scene obviously is gone. So that whole midsection is much more introspective. There's a long scene where Jason Robards and his son are sitting on the roof and sort of talking about. They're sort of one of those late night conversations when the barriers are down, they're having this heart to heart talk on the roof. It's really sweet. And I kind of wish they found a way to sort of keep that in there. And like we said, the whole mirror sequence at the end is totally different, wildly so. And The weird thing is it's probably the most poltergeisty thing in the movie, so I'm kind of surprised they went back and reshot it because it feels very poltergeistish. Whereas the tarantula scene, it's kind of funny, but it almost feels like it's anticipating what came in Temple of Doom the next year. It's almost like the bug scene in that. It kind of feels that way. But yeah, and it's different. And there's one of my favorite thing. It's actually just a millisecond, but the scene where Jason Robards, where he meets Mr. Dark during the parade when the kids are hiding under the grate, but he looks down for a second at Mr. Dark, and Mr. Dark, as he's hiding his hand, you see he has like a furry cloven hand for a second. That's like his true form, just for a flash. It's really creepy. I kind of wish they kept that in. It's a neat little touch there. Yeah. So just, I mean, it's not a radically different film, but it feels more Jack Clayton-y. So yeah, but it's fascinating. And she mentioned Ellen Geer was also at that.
Yes, Ellen Geer was there as well.
She plays Mrs. Holloway. She's obviously the daughter of Will Geer, the acting legend from the Waltons. But she runs the Theatricum Botanicum over in Topanga Canyon, which is like really great outdoor theater to this day. She still runs that and acts in it. But yeah, that was a really great day.
There are some folks who are working on a documentary about the making of the film. They're kind of doing it independently, but they've gone around and gotten a lot of interviews from folks, and it's being done by a young woman who was deeply moved by that film, and hopefully someday that may come to be seen also. I think it's pretty far along.
Is it still called The Autumn People? I think that was the title at one point. Is that...
What was it called?
I think she's calling it The Autumn People. The Autumn People was the name of it. Is that still the name?
I think so.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll get out there.
I first saw the movie as a kid. I don't know if we rented it or if it came on cable. I can't remember, but what I do remember is that there are two specific things that completely messed me up watching it. One is the spider scene, which, funny enough, was one of the things that was added to the film. So I think they made the right decision with that scene, because that freaked me out as a kid, especially the shot where the kid tries to hide on his bed, and it's supposed, you're, as a kid, your bed is your safe space. That's where you go. And then you see the covers start undulating, and and he flips back the sheet, and there's just spiders everywhere in the bed, tarantulas everywhere in the bed. That freaked me out to no end. The other shot, which is so weird that it's stuck in my memory so hard, because it's in the theatrical version, it's like a fraction of a second, but it's the scene where Jonathan Pryce takes Jason Robards' hand and squeezes it, and it causes that split in his hand, that small compound fracture, which is actually slightly extended in the director's cut, but in the theatrical cut, it's literally like half a second. But that stayed in my brain for literally decades until I watched the movie again. So yeah, it's, to me, especially this came out in 83, so I imagine I wouldn't have seen it till 84 at the earliest. But I would have been like 6 or 7 or something when I saw it. But yeah, it's just so funny that this is one of the defining like childhood trauma movies of the 80s. In a decade that was full of them, this is one that definitely left a pretty significant impression on me.
Yeah.
So speaking of the director's cut, so according to Wikipedia, it's funny because they mention a few scenes that they claim are in this director's cut, but I don't believe were ever actually filmed or at least completed and assembled. So one of them is, it mentions in place of the spider scene, there was a sequence, something having to do with like a mechanical hand coming into the room, chasing the children, and I don't know if that was something that was ever actually filmed. I don't know what the source of that was, but Wikipedia seems to claim that was filmed and deleted. But as far as I know, that is not part of the director's cut.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. Nate, you don't know?
I don't.
It's certainly not in the director's cut that we have.
Right.
You can't believe everything on Wikipedia, unfortunately.
Right. Well, and then the other thing on Wikipedia is it mentions that the original arrival of the Carnival was supposed to form. It was supposed to be this early CGI sequence that formed out of the smoke of the train. How like the smoke would like create the tents or something, and then trees were becoming
supposed
the
to be
Ferris
early
wheel
use of
and stuff like that.
CGI. They said
Right,
but
right.
They didn't like it, so they cut it. Last
Well, yeah,
Oh,
minute,
like
right?
Tron, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently that was. It's funny because depending which page you're looking at, some people say that was reported in the Cinefantastique article. Some people say it was reported in Twilight Zone magazine article. But as far as I know, that was never actually part of the director's cut either.
Yeah, having just looked at the Cinefantastique article again today, it is in there, and
Okay.
they actually have graphics of the of how it would have looked. I believe that it was filmed. I should check with people like. Actually, I'm having lunch with Harrison Ellenshaw next week, who is very involved in the film and the effects of the film and the cloud tanks and things like that. I'll check with him. I'll get back to you for the next podcast.
Right.
Lee Dyer was another guy who was involved in visual effects. But of course, the studio was looking into computer graphics. Tron had come out. We had been working on that test for Where the Wild Things Are with John Lasseter doing the camera moves and Glenn Keane doing the animation, and it was a really early look at how computers could help with animation. But
I was going to say, I don't even think I knew that was ever a thing. Interesting.
Yeah, they did like a 30-45 second test. I think you can find it on YouTube
Cool.
for Where the Wild Things Are. Maurice Sendak had said you could do it, but then we never had the rights to it, so we didn't do anything with it. But it was something they were playing around with.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about Something Wicked This Way Comes is the idea of the milieu of it. This sort of the idea of this traveling carnival coming to town. I think there is something like inherently sinister about traveling carnivals that I honestly, it's, there's some horror films about them, but I don't think it's actually something that's really been exploited as much as I would think that it would be. But the idea
Vampire Circus comes to mind.
Right, yeah, like this idea
that's one
of
my
like
favorites too.
This idea of like a group of strangers, coming to this town to entertain you, and they're all sort of have these like performative facades, and you feel like you're like, what are they hiding? So yeah, I mean, there's been something, Vampire Circus, the Fun House, where you find out what they're hiding.
Meridian,
but sort of like, yeah,
another one,
right? But yeah, that sort of like distrust of of these people that are working at this carnival. Kind of, it goes back to it's kind of ingrained in your brain, even from like noir stuff like Nightmare Alley, where the circus geek and these people are it's kind of seen as like the last resort. People at their at the lowest end, and even something like as innocuous as like Roustabout with Elvis and Barbara Stanwyck. They have a character in there. They're Elvis becomes a carny folk in that movie, and they have a character in there who, like Barbara Stanwyck's husband, he's basically just this drunkard who has like no redemptive story arc. It's like everybody just like doesn't like him because he was drunk and actually killed 2 people. So it's like, he starts the movie as an asshole and ends the movie as an asshole, and like there's literally no arc to him at all. But it's kind of weird that and then on the flip side, even something like Freaks, that theoretically turns that on its head and is supposedly showcases that these people these performers are really these are the good guys and it's the outsiders that are the bad guys. But even that movie itself has a little bit of cannibal holocaustitis, where it's like, oh, who are the real freaks? It's like, well, they're the people you were just gawking at for an hour. It's still kind of like exploiting exactly what it is purporting to defend. But yeah, I do think that this movie does that really well and kind of adds this sort of like sinister creepiness to the idea of a traveling carnival. I mean, Santa Sangre would be another one, actually. A really good traveling carny sort of.
Or half the Tales from the Crypt series.
But yeah, I think this movie definitely is like a standout example of sort of like carny horror.
Yeah. Well, I hope it continues to find an audience, because it really is deserving, and it does capture that Bradbury, that whole feeling of endless summers and just
right.
carnivals, and of course Ray was influenced by Mr. Electric or something like that. What
Electro.
was the Electro? Yeah,
Electrico or something. Electrico, I think it is.
Yeah, Mr. Electrico. That's it. It's all coming back to me now. But yeah, I mean, this was part of Ray's childhood, and this was his way of exploring it. And but what a treat to see those performances to this day.
Right.
That's one of the more interesting things about the movie when you compare it to the book. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the differences in that. I think that the book, it changes some of the arcs, but they didn't have Electrico in the film. But they put Tom Fury in the electric chair instead of changing him into a dwarf, which I actually prefer not doing that to Tom Fury, because I don't think Tom Fury deserves the fate he gets in the book. I think it's a little extreme.
Yeah.
But I like that, some of the stuff in the book I do think portrays the kind of people a little bit better, how they're turned more into actual participants of the circus. And in this one, they're kind of just tortured souls. Like, it's more so like a Needful Things story here.
Right.
That kind of King definitely lifted for Needful Things. It's essentially the same story, but just more so a typical Christian kind of deal with his film. But I think that they I guess they simplify it for the movie, just a tad. But I do like the interesting characters that they paint, these people that are obsessed, especially James Stacy. I think that he's kind of a really interesting character, and he has an interesting backstory too. He was in the year previous, he was in that movie Double Exposure, which was another kind of role that used his kind of disability in it. And I think he's kind of the saddest character. I like his character, I like his arc, and I like his interactions with the kids. I like the four characters that they kind of put into that kind of world from the town.
There's the teacher too, that Mary Jane.
Yeah, she's great too.
Yeah.
I actually feel bad for all of them. I don't, like that. They're no horrible people. They just have one fault that is exploited to the extreme.
Right.
They prey on the fear, which is very much a Pennywise or Freddy Krueger kind of thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And the fault isn't even really their own; it's just nature. Or you you
right.
If you lose a limb, it's not your fault. It's
Right.
like
I do relate to Robards, right? Like, I relate to Robards because the line he gives, "You've lived your life learning all these things through people, through your stories." He does have a rebuttal, but I felt that way too. It's like, you lived your life through watching all these movies. You never actually lived your own life, and I'm like, thank you for that. That's, I kind of felt like that,
Well,
like,
that's kind of one of the weird things about seeing this movie as a kid. You sort of relate to the kids, obviously, but now that I'm older, rewatching it with older eyes, I'm like, actually the kids are kind of the least interesting part of this story. I'm like, the main thrust of the story, the main the core ideas of the story, it's all about dealing with aging and regret and your own mortality. It's all these adult themes that obviously hit a lot harder now that we're older than they certainly did, watching this movie as a youngster.
It was kind of bold for Disney to make this movie. It is very dark and very untypical of what Disney was doing up until then. I mean, things like Watcher in the Woods get really creepy, and Black Hole is just weird. Black Cauldron. Yeah.
Who are the voices of the robots in Black Hole? Is it Roddy McDowell, or is he one of them? And
he's one of them. Yeah, and
Slim Pickens.
Yeah.
So weird. So
Bob
weird.
the robot. Could you, just from a PR standpoint, because I remember as a kid, when the poster for this first went up, and walking by, just being like, oh my god. I think David Grove's poster art for this is like one of the best posters I've ever seen. Like, I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I just haven't been taught.
I have one on my wall. Not an original, but I do have one of them in my wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just beautiful. The trailer was great. I mean, so what was it like actually putting the movie out into the world? What do you remember about its release?
I just think it was hard to get a handle on it and hard to sell at that point, to a Disney audience, because it was so different and dark. And we were still finding our way, making movies. It was 83 was before Touchstone came along. That came the next year with Splash and the movie Country with Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard. Those were all Tom Wilhite's things. Tom did Never Cry Wolf, which was a great film. He was really trying to nudge Disney in the direction of more mainstream type of films. But this was an experiment, and I think we were not equipped probably to sell that kind of movie, or didn't quite know how to do it. Gave it a good shot. The posters are great. The trailer is interesting, but it's not a typical family audience film.
Right.
You know.
I think it was even dated, honestly, like for the time. Like I love the movie, that would never bother me, but I remember even watching it, I would have, even as a kid, I wouldn't have guessed it was 83. I would have guessed it was probably from the mid 70s. Just the vibe of it, which is a compliment now, but then it's just, it does capture like the time period he's trying to grasp, but I do think it feels a little old. As I do think Watcher in the Woods was as well. It felt a little older than it.
Well, I mean, you look at 1983, horror in 1983, and, I mean, the stuff we're looking at is like leftovers from the, slasher movies, adaptations of Stephen King work, which, Stephen King was obviously a lot fresher and more contemporary than Ray Bradbury was. So yeah, it was horror in general seemed to have kind of moved beyond that point. So yeah, I could see it being difficult for this movie to find a proper audience in 1983.
Yeah, I mean, things had moved on to the poltergeist type of effects-driven, thrill movie. This is more of a slow burn and definitely a Jack Clayton movie.
Right.
Just psychological. That we didn't talk about the Dust Witch, but Pam Grier was terrific as the Dust Witch.
She's great.
Absolutely.
Got to know her a bit too. I got invited over to her house for dinner. I had a barbecue at Royal Dano's house.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I love Royal Dano, by the way. It's Dano.
Yeah.
I always call him Dano. He's one of my favorite actors growing up as a kid because he just plays the absolute best drunk. And he can do any level of like friendly, angry. So like from Ghoulies 2 to Killer Clowns to Messiah of Evil to House 2 to even drunk.
Abraham Lincoln.
Culpeper County Company. He always comes in and he's always like, how drunk is he in this movie and how scary is he gonna be or funny? He's just one of my favorite character actors, and I love him in this one because he's got this sweet nature and he's like, how much do you have? It's yours, boy. And he lets him have the thing. I was just like, he's genuinely a good person.
Well,
that's what I was saying.
Like he's kind of
a hero.
Yeah.
Well,
he saves the day.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing. He's kind of an enigmatic character where he just sort of appears selling these lightning rods that are supposed to, help ward against evil or whatever. And then, they're torturing him, trying to find out when the lightning comes, and you're like, well, who is this guy exactly? It's obvious he's not just
too.
Right. It's obvious he's not just some huckster that's walking through town, that just happened to be there. He's not just some traveling lightning rod salesman, which apparently was a thing.
There were so many jobs back in the day. Now there's none. Anything could be a job.
So yeah, and then he comes towards the at the climax and saves the day. Which interesting. That's another comparison from the director's cut to the theatrical version. The theatrical version actually has a little bit more of that. With like,
you get the effects when hurling the rod and
Pam Grier actually getting impaled with it. As compared to director's cut's a little more vague.
I do want to mention the Dust Witch in the book. When I read that book, she definitely has a completely different ending. It's this long kind of scene with the gun, and they kind of hit you over the head more in the book with the happy emotions are what kills them. The kind of at the end of Ernest Scared Stupid, right? The unconditional love is what kills the troll. So like it's love, but that's the kind of funny. The positive feelings are what kill the autumn people. It's what scares them away, and the ending's completely different in the book with Mr. Dark trying to pull a fast one and reversing him back to a child and trying to sneak away. But the Dust Witch is not explained as Pam Grier. Let's just say that. The Dust Witch, to me, is not attractive, if you understand. You know what I mean? And this, she seems to be in multiple places at once. She's a magical kind of character.
Right.
And I think watching this, also another Stephen King, I feel like Dr. Sleep lifted directly from this. I'm just like, oh, this is just Dr. Sleep. And people think, it's just like, he's like, I'll just take this, and I make 3 movies out of this.
I was going to mention Rose the Hat and that whole thing where they're feeding on. I mean, in that movie they're feeding on the life force of psychic children, or literally just feeding on psychic children. Whereas this, it's I think there's a line in there that says something like we need their misery to to fuel this carnival.
It's a little bit more elegant. You know how he does the whole speech. He's like, I can feel a man's, sighs of regret from half a city away or something along those lines.
But yeah, and then there's all the stuff with it. Definitely, especially even with this, it even includes, the cyclical nature of this evil, where, he's reading back through his father's diary, his father, the minister, and they talk about how this carnival came to town, in the 1800s, and, nothing was the same, for the townspeople then. So it's very, Stephen King definitely owes a little bit to this one.
Even Welcome to Derry, which is running right now as we're recording this. I mean, even that owes so much to Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Right.
Of it, yeah.
You're making me want to watch the movie again. All this
Bradbury doesn't really get the credit he deserves. The people forget. They always ask Stephen King, was it, Lovecraft? He's like, I mean, he wasn't my main inspiration. I didn't really read him until much later. It's like, it was Bradbury. He does mention that Bradbury was a big inspiration to him, and it's obvious. And that's a good, I mean, at least he's honest.
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's funny. You can feel like as a kid he was reading it, it was just like going straight into his head. When he was reading it, it's all over the place. It's weird. Nobody talks about this film. I guess the hot phrase right now in horror is folk horror, which I think this film is really close to it as far as American movies get. Because you mentioned the Lightning Rod Salesman, but you kind of feel like in the book and the movie that like the American Midwest, it's just like crawling with these sort of like supernatural entities in human form. Like there's good guys and bad ones and in between ones. So you kind of feel like there's this whole world of like these haints sort of existing outside the story, which is something really cool. I kind of wish Bradbury maybe written like a side story or a side book, in that world. But it's something that it feels very much like the like American superstitions, from that go all the way back, to the 1700s, like Sleepy Hollow and things like that. It has that vibe to it.
Well, there's apparently 2 other books that are kind of considered a loose trilogy with this, all with the same town, I believe. But I haven't read either of them, so I don't know how they relate or interplay with this.
Yeah, there's nothing with a plot connection, I don't think. But it's sort of like it's like Castle Rock. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, places it doesn't pay to move to. That's what I learned. Yeah, never move to Castle Rock because that town is just screwed.
I know in the original director's cut, they don't have the narration either. And I know some people think narration's a cheat, but I really like the narration. It brings it all home to me.
Yeah, I think it's good too. Like, in the 12th autumn of my youth or whatever it is, I'm like, it very just kind of it does a good job of setting the tone. And then, like you said, adding a sort of nostalgia, like this sort of adult voice. Again, a very Stephen King-ish thing. Look at something like Stand By Me, or The Body, whatever you want to call it. And again, kind of a very Stephen King-ish thing.
That's the thing. Both versions, I think, have merit. That's what's so weird about it. Normally, there's this people think that obviously the director's cut to me better, and this is one of those cases where I think they both turned out great. They're just different. It's like you compare the 2 scores, which is weird because James Horner was, I think he was probably hired because he was a hot name all of a sudden because of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That was his first big Hollywood film because he'd done like Roger Corman stuff before that in The Hand, But now he was something like the hot young guy. He was like the new Jerry Goldsmith, and so they brought him in for that. But they didn't release the soundtrack back in the day, which was weird. And the Delarue score, obviously, we first heard it because Delarue later on for this soundtrack label called Red Star Band, he did like a suite of the music from this movie, and people were suddenly like, "Oh my God, this music's gorgeous," because he was a Jack Clayton guy, he did like Our Mother's House, and but now luckily we're at this golden age. We've had both soundtracks are now out in their entirety, multiple times in some cases, but I think the soundtracks reflect the movie. It's like they're both great. I wouldn't want to get rid of either one of them, honestly, which is you can't say it about too many movies.
Right.
Is there much of Jack Clayton talking about the film in later years or after the fact, after the film was done? I know there's a couple bios on him, but I don't recall him doing interviews about it particularly.
Yeah, I don't remember reading anything about him. Bradbury obviously did, and he did a great. There's an audio commentary that was done for the Laserdisc of this. That's Bradbury and a bunch of the crew members, a lot of them actually. It's a great track if you can track it down. People post it to like YouTube and stuff like that if you want to find it, but it wasn't on the DVD or the Blu-ray. But Bradbury spoke very positively about it. But yeah, Clayton, he never really talked about it that much as far as I know.
Is there a Blu-ray of it, Nate?
There was, the Disney Movie Club put out a Blu-ray just for just a second before they dissolved it. It came out around the same time as like Watcher in the Woods.
Right.
I got that and Watcher
with
in
no
the
extras.
Right. No extras. I also picked up the Escape to Witch Mountain movies, and
yeah.
I grabbed a couple more because I was like, I want to get the horror films, and then I got out of Disney. I got out of the Disney Club because I had everything I wanted, but I was staying in that club until Something Wicked came out.
Right.
And bought it, and then I was like, I got it.
They did all the. Yeah, the Disney Movie Club did all the trauma movies. They did Black Hole and they did Return to Oz, which might be the
I
most
got Black
traumatic
Hole
of
as
all
well.
the Disney movies.
And Return to
Yeah.
Oz. I love Return
Return
to
to
Oz
Oz is
as
the one that
well.
was like,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
actually caused parents to like riot when the kids saw that movie.
Right. So I do have a question, Howard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the movie had officially wrapped, and I guess there were screenings of it, and that's when Disney decided, oh, this isn't quite working out. This isn't quite the movie we want to put out there.
Yeah.
So then they invested a bunch of money into reshoots, and like another, big schedule. What was like the cast and crew's thoughts about having to come back and reshoot this? I mean, reshoot some bits. I mean, was there like an air of, oh, did we make a mistake? Like, is there something wrong with this, or was everybody just like, sure, let's do what we need to do? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think that those test screenings did not go well, and that was the director's cut, the Clayton cut. I think it even says test screening on there or something. But so yeah, I mean, I think there was panic, there was second guessing, there was trying to figure out what they could do to make it more acceptable to today's, because it is a very serious, dramatic piece, and the director's cut lacked any kind of visual effects, really. So I'll have to ask Tom Wilhite again what he was going through at that point. And '83 is when Tom actually left the studio. He filmed Splash and left before it came out. It came out in '84.
Which was the big hit, right?
yeah. But they brought in somebody over Tom, a guy named Richard Berger, who had come from Fox, and Tom could see the writing on the wall, and he decided that he wasn't going to stick around for it. He created Hyperion Pictures, and their first film was Brave Little Toaster, which was a property that was being developed at Disney, but ended up not. I think went on Disney Channel or something like that. But
Disney wound up on VHS.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the cast and crew felt. I mean, Jack Clayton certainly wasn't happy to have his version tampered with. But yeah, I mean, cast and crew were probably happy being paid to come back and do it.
Well, the funny thing is, you can tell the kids are significantly older in the tarantula scene. Like, you look really closely, you can tell there's actually like a shot, I think, where they kind of squeeze their faces a little bit, try to make it not quite as obvious. They try to cover it slightly. But yeah, you can definitely tell the kids look a little, they've got quite a few more months on them compared to the rest of the movie.
That's fine.
But it's also in actors' contracts, like you have to go back and do ADR work or go do reshoots. I mean, it's a really common thing. I just think in this case it was more famous because it was so effects heavy, and that's why it got more coverage and people were more aware of it. Because a lot of movies go back, they'll do pickup shots and have actors come back in. I mean, it's not that rare. Just to have it.
What was the final budget on the film? Was it 21 million? Did I read something like that?
Yeah, I think Wikipedia said like 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess grossed like 8 or something. I think I saw.
Yeah.
You think it's made its money back now?
Probably not.
I mean, it was at every video store. Everybody had it at the video store. I rented that movie a bunch of. It was in the family section though, so it was free. It was a free rental. I rented 50. One of the only movies when I was like 4 or 5. My mom like, yeah, you can get that one. That one's fine because it was, the rating was so low.
Yeah, I think it's time for people to rediscover it or discover it for the first time, because there's a lot of great stuff going on there.
Right.
Just for fun, I want to mention if Sam Peckinpah did direct this movie, we're gonna use cast members of his. David Warner is Mr. Dark, has to be David Warner. He's worked with 3 times. Jason Robards stays the same, and then we're gonna have to put Pam Grier as Ilsa Vega. I'm trying to think, and we put probably the barber as Warnotes is the guy looking for the women. Who are we gonna put as the greedy guy? What's that little blue-eyed guy from Major Dundee, the little guy. He's, which one I'm talking about. He's also in Phantasm 3, Billy something. He's got a 3 name. He's got one of those like kind of classical Southern names. Blue-eyed guy, little small guy. Phantasm 3's and Major Dundee. You guys would know him. I can't. He's in.
I can't think of the name.
The weird.
You stumped the panel. I'm afraid.
The Hook generation. He's also in the Hook generation.
All right, I'm looking it up. I'm cheating.
All right.
Let's see.
All right, that guy would play the greedy guy. I'm trying to think who else would. I can't cast the kids. The moms are tough. The moms are really tough.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, the kids. Do any Peckinpah movies have kids?
Well, obviously Stella Stevens would be
Yeah,
Stella
on mine.
Stevens has got to be in there. She's got to be Jim Nightshade's mom, right?
Yeah.
She's got to be Nightshade's mom.
Is John Davis Chandler who you're talking about?
That's it.
Okay.
That's John Davis Chandler. I could never remember his name, but he's you know he is.
So speaking of the kids, something I did want to bring up when I was watching the movie, which is like, especially considering this is a Disney movie, I'm like, well, that's kind of fucked up. The idea of the movie is, all of these kids, all these people's deepest desires. That's what this carnival is going to grant them. So the kid next door, Jim Nightshade, apparently his deepest desire is to be a grown-up,
So he can look at women.
and that's the thing. Jonathan Pryce says to him, well, not only do that, well, we'll get to the peep scene in a second, but Jonathan Pryce says to him, like, you want to be grown up so you can do all those things that adults do behind closed doors. So to me, I mean, basically, he wants to be grown up and to basically have sex with women, to screw around with women.
He wants a big story going on.
And I think that this is like part of, I feel like that is a result of him being partially traumatized by the fact that his dad has left the picture and his mom is basically desperately trying to find a new man, because there's that scene where he comes home and she's dancing with that guy. So basically it's kind of like intimating that, he's like so confused about the idea of sexuality and stuff that he wants to just be a grown-up and do this, but it seems like it's almost like this weird perversion because of the reality that he's living in.
I also think the dad ran away with a woman because he says your father's problem was he was hot-blooded, warm-blooded. Oh, R.G. Armstrong is Mr. Cougar. and he's got
that's actually a really good call.
And Dub Taylor is Royal Dano.
There you go.
I'd watch that movie.
You got it, Dave.
But yeah, the other funny part is, right, that peephole scene when they're trying to peep through the tent at the dancing girls, and Will is just like, no, there's nothing in there you want to see. And I'm like, what 12-year-old boy would say that? I'm like, that's what every 12-year-old boy wants to see. I'm like, they'd be fighting over who could see through that damn peephole.
I couldn't help but think there's a place in France where the naked women dance. There's a hole in the wall where the men see it all. That's immediately every time I see somebody peeping in a hole like that, I think of that old girl thing like that. I'm curious though, if they redid this story, who would direct it? Del Toro might do a good job. That's who I'm thinking.
So there was talk. What the hell did I do with my notes? No, well, whatever. I can't remember that guy's name. There was talks like a decade ago that there was a remake in the works for this. And it was going to be, I guess, the directorial debut of the guy that wrote the books and I guess the screenplays of like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And apparently he was set to direct a remake of Something Wicked This Way Comes. But again, that was apparently like 10 years ago at least. So I haven't heard anything about it since. So no idea. Howard, was that something that was in the works at Disney, or do you have no idea?
I don't think so. I think we lost our money and we moved on. But
gotcha.
But yeah, I remember reading about that. I'm not sure who was going to do it or where the rights are these days.
Right.
But yeah.
Please not Del Toro though.
No, you didn't like that Frankenstein?
Well, just his English language films, they lay the dialogue on the nose and so heavy. I think in this case it would destroy it. I mean, it's already like
you're right. There was one line in the Frankenstein.
You're the monster, Victor. It's like
I laughed out loud. I liked the whole movie, and then I started during that scene. I said, I literally laughed out loud. I said, "Come on."
Well, and the thing is, we've already seen a Guillermo del Toro Carnival movie as well with his.
I really like that movie, The Nightmare Alley.
Yeah. He was great. He was a good choice for that, actually. Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. My problem with Nightmare Alley. I mean, number one, I think the original is just amazing.
Yeah.
My problem with his is that I feel like every piece of dirt and every like piece of like splinter of wood everything in that just felt so production designed that none of it felt real to me. It just the whole thing just felt like a movie. I can't.
I think all his movies don't feel real though, but
yeah.
And that's
right? Yeah. And that's my problem with something, and maybe it will work a little better with this one since it's a little more fantasy oriented. But that one, to me, that's kind of such a gritty, dark story. That to me, it felt like a little bit at odds with the style. This sort of like Depression era Icarus tale. So yeah, I mean, it might work a little better with a remake.
Get
of this,
American to direct it.
I'll throw out a crazy one, but I think it might actually work. Imagine Ari Aster doing it.
He'd do it.
I could see that.
I think he could do it.
I think it could be kind of cool.
I mean, I wouldn't argue with that. As long as it has a better ending than what's the one I didn't like?
Beau was Afraid.
Yes, jeez.
Yeah.
Which one? Which one?
Beau was Afraid.
Beau was Afraid. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't watch. That's the only one I haven't seen. I like this newest one quite a bit. Eddington. I thought that was quite.
Yeah. I really liked
That
Eddington.
was very.
How about Wes Anderson's Something Wicked This Way Comes?
That would be fun. That would be crazy to see. He has been getting darker lately, so yeah.
This is true. Or even after just watching, one battle after another, seeing something, what would Paul Thomas Anderson or somebody do with, something this is sort of like fantastic.
Yeah. Well, he can definitely do the Americana thing. So
right.
As long as they're sentimental and genuine, I think it would be a good movie. You can't be disingenuous and make this. It would be disgusting to me. And that's what makes this one so good, I think, is that it feels genuine. It feels heartfelt and it feels deep,
Right.
Does it feel like the film is getting more of a following these days? Are people finding it?
Yeah, I think the Disney Plus thing a lot. I mean, I saw everybody if you look on Letterboxd, all of a sudden it's like the reviews just like boom, like a jillion reviews started popping up all of a sudden.
Right.
It's like everybody started watching it because it was right in front of them. It got really good placement. Around Halloween time.
Now, when we saw it, when we had that screening of the director's cut with Stephen Burum sitting right behind me. He called me afterwards. He said, I would like to color time and correct this film, and I'll do it free of charge. And I went to the restoration people and told them this great offer, and they said, we don't have the budget for it. But Stephen felt that the film really needed some care and correction. And
right.
Let's kickstart it.
Yeah. Just license it to Criterion. Criterion can do the 4K. Let them pay for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame that Disney, seems so relaxed as far as the home video front goes these days. And like even some of their more interesting cult titles, when they were even releasing them on Blu-ray like this, they were literally just exclusives. As they had buy direct from them. They weren't available through standard market channels, and I feel like a lot of people didn't even know that they were out.
I'm sure they didn't.
Yeah, so it's kind of I would love to see somebody do this up with bells and whistles, and really, like you said, I mean, if there's a new feature-length documentary in the works, to really kind of go into a lot of the production, because obviously it was interesting. I mean, if they reshot and re-edited and rescored the movie, there's definitely a lot of stories behind the scenes to tell, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll have to check in with those documentary filmmakers, see where they're at with it. It'd be interesting.
I mean, so many stuff has been redone that we never thought could be done. Like, I never thought Dirty Work directors could. Come on, who would have thought that? Like, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff coming out. I'm just amazed. Right. And then sometimes there's these big movies that, I know I say it wasn't a huge movie, but it was like mid-tier movie at the time. Like, I'd say a fair amount of audience. They just disappear into nowhere. And it's so odd to me that the crappiest little movie, like some SOV that 5 people saw in 1980 has 10,000 views on Letterboxd now, and some classic is just completely forgotten. I don't understand people anymore.
Well, there's Disney movies in that period that are just almost they're almost you can't see them in good version, like Condor Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was literally getting ready to say Condor Man. Yeah, Condor Man. I remember as a kid that was on like the Disney Channel all the damn time. Like in every video store had Condor Man, but where can you see it now? Yeah,
there's like an old SD master you can rent on Amazon. That's it. Right. It's like there's all those movies in that period.
I don't even think it's streaming on Disney Plus, their own channel. No, it's not even on there. Right.
Someday.
Right. Yeah, and I tried to buy those discs when I could. I know we had mentioned Return to Oz and Watcher in the Woods. Watcher in the Woods would actually be another interesting one to see a reconstruction of, because those alternate endings to Watcher in the Woods and the alternate introduction, both those are great. Yeah, like that would be another one. Like if I saw that full movie when I was a kid, that would have messed me up. And I mean, it's still pretty crazy now. And even Nathaniel, you would turn me on to I think it was a TV movie, Child of Glass.
Child of Glass. Child of Glass, I think, is kind of ground zero for all this stuff, because that was in the late 70s.
Right.
That was like a TV movie for Wonderful of Disney, but that was kind of their first real horror movie. It was a ghost story.
Never heard of that one.
It's great, and it was a movie that like really spooked me out hard as a kid. And I couldn't remember the name of it. I thought I hallucinated it. I was like, oh, it's the movie about the little blue glowy ghost girl, and there's some diamonds in a well, and she died, and she's trying to like da da da. And finally I came across, and I started describing people, and people were like, yeah, I remember that movie. I don't know what the name of it was. Like nobody could remember the name of it. And finally, when IMDb started, I was doing keyword searches, and then I finally was like, oh, Child of Glass.
Right.
It was another one on VHS, and because it had the Disney logo, like same thing as Something Wicked, it had the Disney logo, so people were like, oh, it goes in the kids section, 99-cent rental.
Right.
The Disney movie that screwed me up was Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Another great one.
Those
that ending is scary.
Man, I didn't sleep for a week, I don't think.
That's like 10% horror, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was another big rental for me and my sister when we were growing up. Like it's funny, we didn't rent the Disney cartoons a lot. But we would get the live action stuff nonstop. So things like that, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and the Gnome Mobile, and all the. I mean, I guess Bedknobs is partly animated. But yeah, the Gnome Mobile, and all those things. Yeah, that was like pretty much our diet of stuff in the 80s. Yeah, Darby
O'Gill had it better then.
Well, and the other funny thing was, as kids, I talk about this a lot with friends at work. When you're a kid, you have no idea that something's old. They were at the rental store, so we just thought they were all new movies. We thought all movies were like created equally. Kind of like when you're watching a TV show as you're a kid, you don't understand the concept of reruns, or the fact that you're watching. I was trying to explain to somebody from work. I'm like, yeah, we used to have like in the kitchen there was in the main room you had a color TV. I was like, but in the kitchen you had a small, tiny black and white TV. I'm like, so you would watch the Andy Griffith Show and then Happy Days and not realize it was the same kid that was like in both of those things. You just thought they were all happening at the same time. Like
like Darby O'Gill, they would actually put back in theaters for like summer shows for kids into the 80s. So like I saw it in the theater as a kid, but like if watching that movie, if you put a gun to my head at 10 years old and be like, what year was this movie made? I would have been like 1948, 1978. I had no idea. I could never guess.
That's like the Japanese movies from like 1985 to 2000. You're like, what year is this? 1985 to 2000. Direct-to-video ones, they all look the same to me. I can't tell you.
Right.
Howard, can you give us a couple, a few, 3 or 4 or something like underrated Disney movies that no one talks about? You don't think got enough appreciation? I think that'd be really interesting.
Well, I do think Never Cry Wolf is one that doesn't get the attention that it should. They showed it recently at the one of the Cinematheque theaters here, and Charles Martin Smith was there, and Carol Ballard, the director, was there. And boy, that movie was good when it came out, and it's still good. Really, really plays well. Trying to think if we're talking. I don't know. They're all good to me. I'll think of something else. I was the publicist on Herbie Goes Bananas. They sent me down to Mexico with Charles Martin Smith and Harvey Korman and Cloris Leachman. That's not underrated. That's about where it should be. But
that's a great cast, though.
It does.
Absolutely great cast.
Yeah.
I would throw. There's another one around that period that nobody ever talks about called Night Crossing. That's actually really good. That's a really solid movie. It's a really good like Cold War thriller about a family trying to like hot air balloon over the Berlin Wall. And it's a really cool like really gritty like family like espionage movie. It's a cool one, but like again, it's totally overlooked.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Does this count as an official Plex request?
It's on Plex.
Does anybody want to mention anything else about Something Wicked This Way Comes?
I think we've covered most of it. I jotted down some random notes while I was watching it, but I think we've covered most of the stuff. Let's see. The only other... in the Jonathan Pryce role, I did have it noted down that some of the other options that they were originally, like Jack Clayton originally had in mind, were the possibility of Christopher Lee or maybe Peter O'Toole in the Jonathan Pryce role, but they decided to keep the budget low. They would hire
was that Bradbury or Clayton?
Jonathan Pryce. I did not get that specific, but somebody did.
I feel like it might have been Bradbury. I can't remember. It was. I can't 100%.
But yeah, I mean,
he would have killed it. He would have killed it.
Peter O'Toole was amazing.
I mean, I think Jonathan Pryce is great in it, though. So, I mean, at this point, I can't even imagine anybody else in the role. And at the same time, trying to keep budget down. Like, how much was Christopher Lee really? How much did he really cost in 1981? I mean, like,
I know.
I mean, come on.
He's just about to do the Howling 2 in 85.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
He had just done House of Long Shadows in 83. So they were doing 81. I don't think he was doing very much, to be honest.
Right.
He wouldn't have been that expensive.
What year was Golden Gun, Nathaniel?
Oh, that was 75.
Okay, so yeah, he was way off James Bond. So yeah, he was back to doing just whatever at that point.
He was doing made-for-TV stuff around this time. He was like Once Upon a Spy and like all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Right. I do have a note.
And Peter O'Toole was just in a Caligula in 79. So I mean,
well, no, Peter O'Toole is just on My Favorite Year, which was a big comeback for him. So yeah, he was hot again all of a sudden. Yeah, he went too expensive.
Yeah, my only other note, let me see, we got the Influential King, we talked about that. My only other real note, I think, was the fact that not only is this a Carney movie, but it also counts as a creepy kid movie, because the guy reverts to a kid, he's the little ginger kid with the school marm. And there's nothing, and the only thing worse than a creepy kid is a creepy ginger kid, because they're the worst of all. So yeah,
the commentary is hilarious on that, because they said we don't really Ray Bradbury or something was like on the commentary. He's like, we don't think he knew what he was doing, but it was creepy enough and it worked because the kid was too young to understand any concept in the film. Yeah. And when I was watching it this time, I kept that in mind, and I was just watching him, and I was like, he's doing a pretty good job for not understanding anything.
Right. Yeah, and I do feel bad for the actress that played the teacher in the thing, because the whole time they just keep referring to her as ugly, and she keeps referring to herself as ugly. I'm like, God, that's like kind of cruel.
And then
like you wouldn't believe it, but she used to be the prettiest woman in this town, and then like, oh, like ew, ugly her, like, oh, wow, God. Like, what actress would say yes to this role?
It's the same thing with like Married with Children cast. Hey, do you want to play one of the people that Al Bundy, makes fun of? Like, how are they getting this? You know what I mean?
Right,
so degrading.
Right. Look at this fatty. Right. Yeah. So like, geez. Okay.
Well, as we know, in the 80s, anyone who wore glasses was ugly by default until he took them off. So,
right, good point.
They gave her huge glasses, so yeah, she had to be really ugly, not this big.
They didn't have the "There She Goes" song to play either when they took them off. You know, the Sixpence None song to play when they took the glasses off to make it officially hot.
But yeah, it also is funny to kind of you don't. I know we had mentioned the cast before. You don't quite necessarily realize just how stacked this cast really was until watching it these days. You look back on some of these actors, like, when I was growing up, to me, I knew Jason Robards mainly from like crap like Dream a Little Dream, or, he was in Parenthood, which was really good. But, obviously I didn't see, Once Upon a Time in the West or The Ballad of Cable Hogue or any of that stuff till, years later.
Noon Wine is one of his best performances. Noon Wine.
Yeah. I have not seen that.
Oh, it's a Peck and Paw made for TV movie.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
And he had an Oscar by this point, too, for Old President's Men.
Right, yeah. Another one I didn't see till high school, I think. In addition to, Once Upon a Time in the West, to me, is, one of the greatest movies ever made. I mean,
hands down.
Best Western ever made, hands down.
Best movie with the worst commentary.
I think Old President's Men actually they used to show it at our library when I was a kid, but that was like that was the first PG movie we really got away with dropping F-bombs. Jason Robards, I think, was the first person I ever heard saying it on film.
Oh, really?
That movie. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
He says it like twice. I think he says it in the movie, and it's like, oh, you can't say that PG. Like
the two early F-bombs would be Joe, Peter Boyle, saying the F word. Somebody once told me that was the first time they ever heard somebody say the F word in a movie. And somebody else told me the first time they ever heard the F word said was Two-Lane Blacktop, Warren Oates.
That's funny.
Those were like automatic R ratings, though. Yeah, Old Presidents, they had like fight because they were like, that was the only objectionable thing in the movie, and they were like, whatever.
Well, I can remember in the 80s, it was like, I feel like they weren't that far apart. I don't know what the actual release schedule was, but I remember my grandmom took me and my little sister to go see both Spaceballs in theaters and Beetlejuice. And both of those dropped F-bombs in them. My grandma was
87,
like, these are PG,
yeah.
these are kids' movie. Wow. My grandma was like up in arms about this. Could not believe that they were using that kind of language in a
well, and so did 16 Candles
movie.
before that, right at the beginning of the movie. It was like, whoa. Like,
well, my grandma did not take us to see 16 Candles. So,
mine did. That was very awkward.
You mean like when me and my mom went and saw American Beauty in theaters in the opening scene? I was just like, oh, hey.
I was 10. I put Day of the Dead on. First time I was 10 years old watching my parents, and they start dropping the F-bomb. Steel comes on. He's just like F-bombs. And I was like, I got to get this movie off and watch it in my room. They're not going to let me finish this one.
Very funny.
So thank you, Jason Robards.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Jason Robards is in it. Jonathan Pryce, who obviously I didn't know, and I feel like Jonathan Pryce is still like
underappreciated.
It's funny because Brazil is his cultiest movie, I guess.
The Breaking Glass movie was that one. He was an early role. He's fantastic.
Yeah, and that was great. I didn't see that till later though. He's fantastic in that too. But I mean, to me, like I know him from like smaller roles in like Baron Munchausen was big on cable. Like I saw that a lot. Terry Gilliam's Adventures of Baron Munchausen. So I knew him more from that. So at the time, no idea who Pam Grier was. And it's funny, she was kind of going through a bit of a lull in her career. In the 70s, she was known for, being this kind of like badass chick in, stuff like, Coffee and Foxy Brown and, a bunch of blaxploitation movies and stuff. But by the 80s, not only was, roles kind of were in a weird spot for women in general, but yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't really know what to do with her. So, she was kind of seen in like secondary roles in a lot of things. And obviously she got a big revival later with Jackie Brown, but I feel like, there was that period of like 15 years or so there that was really kind of weird for her. So it's always cool to see her have a role in this movie, although she doesn't have really a lot of dialogue, but her presence is really felt in this movie.
I do want to mention Mr. Cougar. I had to look him up. He's so familiar. And right when I looked him up, I was like, oh, yeah, he's the one of the bounty hunters in the Outlaw Josie Wales.
Yeah, I was going to say Josie
the really
Wales
intense
was the
guy.
thing,
When he's,
right.
Yeah. And Royal Dano's in that, too. So they got a little connection on that.
Yeah,
so that's funny. Yeah. Couple of guys. And the barber, I should mention, I couldn't recognize him. Yeah, I looked him up and I was like, oh wow, he's one of the soldiers in Kelly's Heroes. He's in Cool Hand Luke. I was like, he's all clean shaven in those movies, so I didn't even recognize him. I think is he one of the guys that dies in Kelly's Heroes? There's only a few that die. I think he might be one of them. Yeah,
there's quite a few. I think he does.
I think there's only 3 that bite it in Kelly's Heroes on the good guy team.
Not as many as Dirty Dozen, but yeah, a lot more.
They all die in Dirty Dozen. Well, the book doesn't let you know what happened. The book just cuts off, and it's in a military report on the Dirty Dozen.
That's funny.
Awesome.
But we kept you probably longer than we should.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. If there's anything you want to say or plug or anything, I'd be happy to hear it.
No, this has been fun talking about a film that I hold with great esteem and had a great time working on it. Wish it had done better at the time, but the fact that it got made is a great deal. And it's got a lot of heart, got a deep message. It's a really powerful film, and it captures Ray Bradbury's writing in a beautiful way.
And like Bruce mentioned, you can watch this every 10 years and see a whole different movie every time, depending on who you are.
Right.
And I hope people get to see the director's cut someday. I don't think there's any plans for it, but I don't even know if there's a better cut of it than the half-inch tape that I have. But actually, we had a 3/4-inch tape too. But anyway, should find out.
Thank you so much, Howard. It's been great.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Nice talking to you guys. You did all the heavy lifting. I just told a few anecdotes that may or may not be of interest, but anyway, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Did anybody else have anything to plug before we stop the recording?
Nope, nothing for me.
If you haven't seen it, watch the movie on Disney Plus.
Yeah, right.
Go watch it. Go buy one of the Blu-ray copies on eBay for $300. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Do they go pretty high?
Yeah. They're pretty expensive. I saw them probably $100, $200 or something along that lines right now.
That Watch from the Woods and Return to Oz are pretty pricey. Black Hole, yeah.
Huh.
See, people love this period. It's in our hearts.
All right. Well, let's do it again, fellas. That was fun.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you next year for
Yeah.
Baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll get some people on for Baby. All right. See ya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chai!
For my father, being old was all right now. He had freed himself from the shadows and liberated our town. So I think he knew on that bright morning that he'd made a memory that would live as long as sons tell sons about fathers they love.
Yes, old. Because your heart is old. Listen to it. You tell me where the boys are hiding, and I can make you young again. I could turn your years back for you to, well, let's say, 30. And speak, or you've missed it. Going. It's gone.